Here's exactly what I would do if I wanted to get in shape in the next 90 days as a personal trainer. So there are some things you have to take into consideration, such as training, nutrition, and activity that has to be dialed in. And every aspect of it is a branch, and every branch you have to water differently. So what I mean by that, for example, if we start with nutrition, which is the most important thing in my opinion, this is where everything is decided, how you will perform on your training, how you will build your muscle based on what you eat, and how you will recover as well. If we start with nutrition, I would take a calorie deficit into consideration, and that is what I would focus most on. That is what will make me eventually lose fat and get me lean and make me look in shape. So what is usually recommended is around 500 to 1000 calorie deficit daily, so you lose enough fat and don't lose muscle mass. Also that you can perform well on your training days. To be in a calorie deficit, you have to know how many calories your body expends daily. And the easiest way to do that is to go to a calorie calculator site and figure out how many calories that you burn. You could also take your body weight in pounds and multiply it by 10, which you will get your basal metabolic rate. And so with that, you want to add your activity level. Usually it's something like your BMR times 1.3 if you're like more sedentary, or like 1.5 if it's like kind of moderate, or 1.7 to 1.9 if the activity level is pretty high. You will get an estimation of how many calories you expend per day. Now, when you know how many calories your body expends per day, you want to take away around 500 to 1000 calories daily to be in a deficit. So if you're in a 500 calorie deficit per day, you will lose around 2 kilograms of fat monthly. If you're a 1000 calorie deficit daily, you will lose around 4 kilograms of fat monthly. So now you know how a calorie deficit works, and now you have to dial in your macronutrients, which are your proteins, carbohydrates, and fat. So I usually take around 50% of my carbohydrates as my calories, and 25% as my protein, and 25% as my fat. So if you're eating at 2000 calories, you get 1000 calories from carbohydrates, 500 from protein, 500 from fat. Also have to remember that fat has 9 calories, carbohydrates has 4 calories, and protein has 4 calories each. How I would dial in my macronutrients is actually by having carbohydrates before training. Depending on when I'm training, let's say in an hour or so, half an hour, I would take fast carbohydrates such as cookies, something very fast, something that will get into my bloodstream very fast. So cookies, candy, or rice crackers, something like that. So I have that extra energy. If I, however, wanted to train in a couple of hours, then I would take something more hard to digest, such as beans or lentils or something like that, more in fibers, so that I keep my blood sugar levels more regulated throughout the day. After training is when I would focus on fast carbohydrates and proteins. Fast carbohydrates especially is because you're more insulin sensitive, so this will make your macronutrients absorb faster or better actually. And so the second thing is training. How will you structure your training? This is the second most important thing. And so when you structure your training, you want to have enough recovery, enough stimulation so that you actually build muscle, and enough rest. The most simple way is to find a structured program. If you don't have a personal trainer, you can't ask me. You could ask ChatGPT to actually build you one. So it's very advanced these days. So you could just make something and structure it based on your needs. Now, I assume you want to build some muscle. So your goal will be hypertrophy, and it will mostly be in a range of, they usually say 8 to 12 reps, but it depends. It could be lower, it could be higher. However, that is like a sweet spot. And so you almost want to go till failure on every exercise. Not till failure, you want to maybe leave 1 to 2 repetitions so you don't actually burn yourself out, and so that you can recover as well and perform on every set. On compound exercises, I would go for around 6 to 8 reps and go a bit heavier. This is where I will build most of my strength. And for the accessory exercises, I will go for around 8 to 12. This is where I will focus on more volume, but also build strength, of course, because they go hand in hand. The more strength you have, the more volume you can add, plus the bigger muscles you can build. So you will want to work out around 3 to 5 days a week, focus on around 15 to 20 sets on each muscle groups weekly and take those repetitions into consideration that we talked about. So now you have a program that rolls on, and the next thing is that you want to progressive overload. That could be that you add weight weekly to the exercise. It could be that you add repetitions. It could be that you add sets, as long as you're progressing in some way and making more progress and getting stronger, because that is where micro tears will happen in your muscles, so they could actually build themselves up again. Also, since we're also in a calorie deficit to get our physique in 90 days, we want to eat a lot of carbohydrates, like I told you before. This is mainly to make us perform on the exercise, because we don't want to lose muscle, especially on a calorie deficit. It's very simple for that to happen, and we don't train hard enough and we look more flat than we're actually building, and that's not what we actually want. So we have to keep pushing and going that extra mile. It is a bit harder to gain muscle in a calorie deficit, but it's doable, especially if you time your macronutrients right, especially carbohydrates. You also want to focus on the right technique when executing the exercise, because you want the muscle to work actually, not just the movement. Now, if you're doing biceps, you don't want to go like this. You want to actually contract the muscle so that it's the muscle that is working, and so not just your whole body swinging. That's where like the extra things are. Now, this was the training part, and the last part is the activity level, or like getting in your steps or walking on the treadmill. So they usually say to aim for around 10,000 steps. It usually, for me, I would say it burns around 400 calories, which is pretty much, that's a lot, like 1.5 to 2 kilograms monthly for me, if I would to just use that while being on a maintenance. If you don't want to go walk 10,000 steps a day, you could walk on the treadmill, a full incline or something similar. 3 to 4 kilometers an hour will burn calories a lot faster. It's, however, a bit more intense, and I do not recommend it to do it every day, because you will actually start burning out and burn more carbs, have lower energy levels. But this is pretty much it. And so there are some other factors when you get more into it and stuff like that, but these are like the foundations of it all, and how I would get lean in 90 days and how you could do it as well. And the most important thing is that you're able to stick with it, because with consistency, that's where you receive results. And if you feel that you can't do it by yourself, then you can always contact me and reach out to me, and I will of course get back to you and see how I can help you reach your goal and transform yourself. This is pretty much it, and thank you for watching.